again, it's Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit here on MAV TV, talking sprint car racing, our favorite time of the week, and we are so glad that you have joined us. Ashley Strummy and Steve Post zooming our way through the pandemic. Ashley, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How about yourself?
I am doing well. Last weekend was Memorial Day weekend, one of the traditional high water marks in motorsports, not only on the sprint car level, but nationally. And I am telling you what, it was just weird. And I'm not a Debbie Downer, but it's not the same. We need to get some racing back. My gosh.
I have to agree with you. I think it's probably been 20 years. This is the first Memorial Day weekend that I'm not at a racetrack. I'm with you. It was definitely weird. In all honesty, I don't know if it's a weekend or a weekday at this point. So it is what it is.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about this. Dylan Welch, and he does Rip the Fence with us. And Dylan's, he broadcasts the NASCAR races. And Dylan is an Indiana boy. The family gets up in the morning on the Indy 500 day. They have their routine. They park here. They go there. They do this. They come home. They watch the Coca-Cola 600. And in listening to Dylan and just thinking about the great tradition of Indy, the Monaco start. So some people, it's their biggest couch potato day. And, of course, for us the last few years, it meant Port Royal Speedway. And I am just all kinds of depressed that there was no Weikert Memorial. So we need to get rolling because some of these great racing traditions, they hit a little close to the heart when they're taken away from us.
Yeah, they're definitely putting a damper on my lifestyle and the things that I enjoy, for sure.
For sure. No doubt about it. Hey, Brad Doty is one of the great ambassadors of the sport of sprint car racing. And when we come back, we're going to chat with the Hall of Famer. But first, let's take a look back at racing action last week from Peevely. Johnny Gibson with the call. It's on Dirt Vision, our Dryden Diesel all death-defying move of the week.
And now for the Dryden death-defying move of the week, where one driver simply amazes us with their on-track moves.
We've got traffic, and we'll have 5 to go. When they come back to the line, Larson look to the inside, goes down low and steals the lead. Kyle Larson leads with 5 to go. Sweet right back to his inside. Brad Sweet takes the lead back.
That death-defying move was brought to you by Dryden Diesel All Death, the official death of the world of outlaws and wheelmen everywhere. Visit Dryden.com for more information.
Pride, passion, performance. We are Team Dryden.
Back, it is Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit here on MAV TV. Joining us on the Hercules Tire Hotline, he's a Hall of Famer, he's a promoter, he's a former driver, and all-around good guy, and one of the best ambassadors of the sport. Brad Doty is on our line. Hello, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
It's good. It's interesting to see our guests. Usually we do this via the phone, but we're Zooming now, so it is kind of good. And how are you doing surviving the COVID-19 lockdown stay-at-home orders?
Getting tired of it. It's this time of year is kind of slow for me anyway, and we've had so much rain. I don't know how many races we would have gotten in here in Ohio anyway, but Memorial Day weekend coming up and nothing going on. That's kind of really drives the point home that it's a different situation.
Well, Brad, I mean, even though there's so little to talk about race-wise, there's a lot to talk about with what's just happening. I mean, we've got sprint cars on FS1, or we had their iRacing on FS1. You know, CBS Sports picked things up. From your perspective, and like Steve said, you're such an ambassador for the sport. What has been your take of this iRacing and kind of getting sprint cars out there on a national platform it was a regular basis there for a little bit, but obviously that has stemmed down now that we're actually sort of getting back to racing.
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting, Tim Nichols with Tim Sims, probably 18 years ago, took the sprint car and cut it in half and put the computer in with the old rat bag sim games, and he was way ahead of his time. And to see how it's grown and how many people got involved, and I wrote about it in my columns and stuff, that yeah, it's a game, but there was still competition. There was a steering wheel, gas pedal, brake pedal, but the main thing, there was competition. And maybe more importantly, it got a lot of drivers nationwide attention and their sponsors. While there's all this downtime and there wasn't quote real racing going on, it gave those teams and drivers a chance to have some fun and keep their eye to hand coordination going and get their sponsors out there.
It was, that is for sure. Names like Tony Gwalder, Robbie Kendall, Brent Michalski are guys that you have to be in your region, whether it's California or Pennsylvania. In the case of those three guys, everyone there knows who they are. But now, I mean, they have become. It was a pretty good opportunity for some of those guys. Right,
and I'll admit there was a lot of guys, especially the sim racers, that I'd never heard of. Early on.
Yeah, absolutely. It is amazing. I actually, while we talk about guys getting attention, a guy that has had in his life a little bit of a similar plight to you, Kevin Swindell, getting the opportunity to race up front as a guy that is in a wheelchair, as Kevin is. What did that mean to you watching Kevin do that, and did you want to brush up your skills?
Well, in the rat game, I was actually supposed to be part of the original rat bag game back in the day. I did some voicing for it, and my name's actually in the back of the booklet, but they didn't use me or Carl Kins or a couple other ones that did some voicing. And back then I tried it a little bit, but it just had a push button for the throttle and the brake, nothing like today. And I tried it for a while, and I got frustrated and quit. If I couldn't feel like I could do it and be competitive or do it the way I wanted to. Now, of course, the steering wheels have come a long way. It sounded like Kevin did a lot of revamping and working on his own. And, there's some guys working on better throttle control and brake for the sim games. But I haven't done a lot of it. Kevin's been doing it for years. So he was, he had a lot of practice. And I know that for him to win Knoxville, even in a sim game, that had to be pretty special.
It is so true. And we had the opportunity to chat with him, and he kind of played it off, but he was still appreciative of having a win at Knoxville again. Brad, you mentioned Ratbag. My gosh, you brought back so many memories. I had totally forgot about Ratbag. I used to play that way back in the day. So I appreciate that. But getting back to real racing, as you said, how do you feel this is really going? Obviously, Knoxville was a hit with the World of Outlaws, but this no fans in the stands, but guys actually getting back on track.
Well, obviously, it's really good for the race teams and to get them out and get some racing. Most of the World of Outlaws drivers do it for a living, and they haven't had a paycheck for a long time. So they, obviously they're glad to be back to work, and as long as they can do it safely, I hope they can continue. Now, how long can it be sustained as just a pay-per-view with no fans in the stands? I know, going to Peevely and there'll be a few fans in the stands, but it takes a lot of money to break even to run a World of Outlaws race. But I'm sure the World of Outlaws as a series has sponsors that maybe have a contract that they have to run so many races a year. So they're trying to get races in. Same with the teams. Maybe their sponsorship is based on how many races they run a year. So they're glad to be out there racing, and just, it's got to be really weird to win a race or to be out there racing without any crowd. But once you're in that race car, all that goes away. You're back focused on just driving the race car. So I think it's really good.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned to see what happens. Hey, and speaking of stay tuned, we need to step away. Everyone else hang in there. More with Brad Doty coming up in just a moment.
Hey, Ashley, what are you up to?
Oh, I just stopped by to grab some sage fruit apples. Now I just have to decide which ones.
You can never go wrong with a Honey Crisp. They're light, crisp, and full of perfectly balanced flavor.
Oh, hey.
You could always go with one of their classics, the Gala or Fuji. They're both sweet and juicy. Grown in the heart of Eastern Washington, Sage Fruit Company works hard on the farm and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears to consumers all year long.
Well, I couldn't decide which ones. Thanks for the help, guys.
I'll race you to checkout.
Welcome back. It is Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit. We're glad you've joined us here on MAV TV. We're on the Hercules Tire Zoom line, and Brad Doty joins us on the line, having a great visit with Brad, and chatting about we chat about iRacing and about real racing. Brad, one of the projects that you have also is you're a promoter, and your event is slated to happen 6 weeks, 8 weeks, somewhere down the road here coming up. As a guy sitting there with your hands tied behind your back, because that's really where you are now in the state of Ohio, what are you doing? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What's Brad Doty doing with the Brad Doty Classic?
Just wait. It's a wait and see right now, Steve. You know, till things open up, I don't know. I've got my fingers crossed that it still happens in July, but obviously there are a lot of unanswered questions for promoters all over the country, for the World of Outlaws themselves. You know, they're reshuffling their schedule, and you know, we just literally have to wait till it gets closer till we see what my hope is that we start to see a downturn in the illness, you know, the rate of it, and looks like some of the states that have opened up, things haven't exploded like they thought they would. Well, I guess that depends on who you listen to, but it does seem like, you know, it's not quite as bad as they had thought. And so if we can get more states opening up and unless, you know, something happens, maybe that Ohio will start opening up and we'll start getting fans in the stands, and maybe by July 14th we'll be allowed to have, you know, full grandstands. That's my hope.
Yeah.
I know we usually talk about Mother Nature when it comes to the Brad Doty Classic. Who knew we'd be talking about a virus?
Exactly.
Anyhow, obviously there's so much that can happen in the next few weeks, and hopefully, like you said, it goes off July 14th. If not, I mean, do you have a backup plan? How does that work as a promoter? You know, is that something you can push off to later in the season, or do you bag it for next year? I mean, how as a promoter do you work with that?
Well, it's, again, kind of early, but, you know, last year when we got rained out, the Attica Raceway Park runs a 2-day all-star race Labor Day weekend, and that's always been on their schedule for years. So we were able to make the Brad Doty Classic a 2-day race Labor Day weekend, and it worked really well. And the all-stars, Tony and all his crew, Tony Stewart and the whole crew, really worked with us, with their sponsors and my sponsors, and we got 2 nights of good racing. So, you know, I haven't talked to them directly, but I get the feeling that, you know, if we have to go till then, or, you know, we can't get it in July, that would be probably our only option, because just like last year, the only time the World of Outlaws are in this area is in July. So for us to try to reschedule it as a World of Outlaws race, it probably won't happen. So again, I just got my fingers crossed that things open up and we can get it in July.
Brad Doty joining us here. Brad, I'm going to ask you the same question. We had Sheldon Hodenshield on last week on the show, and I'm going to ask him the same question, or ask you the same question, okay? There is an area in Ohio where the Hodenshields, the Dotys, and the Jacobs live, where you could, with a good solid right arm, you could throw a stone and just about hit each other's house. And you're all sprint car legends. You're all icons in the world of sprint car racing. Was there something in the water? Why is that?
You know, I talk about it in my book, and, you know, I guess we've compared it to a lot of, you know, maybe like 4 high school football players, you know, that went on to bigger and better things, you know, at least the college level, not necessarily the NFL, you know, but it started with Jack and Ed Hodenshield's dad, John. He was a local hero, and he kind of got things rolling. Then Ed Hodenshield got into it. You know, then I met Kenny Jacobs. His dad ran late model and what we called a modified or a rough-built sprint car back in those days. So he was really big in the local area. So those guys kind of got it secondhand, second generation. My dad raced one time and didn't like it much. He always knew John and Kenny Jacobs. And so we grew up together, Kenny. And I met Kenny when he was about 17 or 18. But Jack and Ed and I grew up together. So we just got started at Lakeville and got really lucky.
Well, to kind of piggyback off of Steve's question there, you know, talking to Sheldon, we asked him what it was like growing up with his dad being Jack, you know, people that we looked up to as race fans and in the racing world. And it was just his dad to him. For you, Brad, who was kind of maybe a hero or a mentor or somebody that you looked up to when you were in the middle of your racing career?
Well, you know, I was really young. Jan Opperman was my hero, you know, before I started racing and stuff. But I'd have to say Ed Hodenshield. I mean, he was 16 years old when he started in the modified. And the modified he started in was probably 20 years old when he got it. And so that's what I started in when Ed moved up to a sprint car. And one thing that really stands out in my mind, he was leading a race at Wayne County Speedway. And he spun out and stood on the gas and did a 360 and kept going and won the race. And I was so impressed with that. I thought, how did he do that? How in the world could anyone ever completely spin a car around like that and keep control of it, go on and win the race? And so he was a big inspiration to me. And I thought, I want to do this. I really want to try to do this. And that's kind of how it all started.
It's amazing. Really is such the rich part of the history up in the state of Ohio. And hopefully we get everyone back in racing and can continue on with the great tradition of sprint car racing across the country. Brad, I could talk to you for hours, but the clock on the wall says it's time to say time to wrap this up. We appreciate your time. We wish you the best with the upcoming race. With our fingers crossed on that. And as always, we just appreciate hanging out and spending some time with you.
Well, thank you for having me on. Like you said, it is a little odd to be seeing you guys because usually it's a phone call. So thanks for having me on.
There we go. I look much better on the phone, and Ashley looks much better on Zoom. So we'll go with that. But you can catch Brad and all of his great work at Sprint Car and Midget Magazine. And just always a pleasure. Hey, we need to step away. We have got, well, we're not going to do our Tweet Your Seats this week. We got something really special coming up for you next.
Power isn't born, it's built over time. For over 65 years, Hercules Tires has been providing the muscle to move more drivers, whatever the vehicle, whatever the terrain, and we back it with a powerful protection plan. So wherever the road or the trail takes you, we have the selection, value, and strength to get you there. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
Presented by Sage Fruit, and it's typically the Tweet Your Seats right now, but we have changed it up because we've got a great surprise for you. Last week, Sheldon, after we were done with the interview, he actually took us through a little walkthrough of his shop real quick to show us some incredible helmets, and we had to share it with you. So look at all these amazing helmets Sheldon has in his collection.
So this is one of Dad's. He got hurt in PA, I think. Someone's Nerf bar came off. But right here, the Nerf bar went through the front of it. It knocked him out and knocked his front teeth out. And he said when he woke up, he had to pull the Nerf bar out of his mouth. And then he said he ended up going to the doctor, and they had to wire brush all the chrome out of his gums.
Oh my God.
He has some crazy ones. Like, look at this one. This was just a couple years ago. He got hit so hard with a rock, it flexed the shield in and it stuck still. It broke his nose on that one. Like, he just has some crazy.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Drew gave me one of his football helmets. He wanted me to put that up there. And then I just have some of mine. See, like, I have no cool stories like that.
One of our partners is Ford Performance, and they've had their drivers doing all kinds of neat videos during this downtime. Chase Brisco, of course, a NASCAR Xfinity Series driver who had quite a time in Darlington after a terrible, tragic situation with him and his wife losing a baby with a miscarriage. 2 days later to outdo Kyle Busch at Darlington to win the Xfinity Series race. What a roller coaster ride. What a beautiful story as far as racing goes for Chase Brisco. But one of the things, we had Sheldon's shop tour. Chase, he took us through Twitter on a tour of his racing room that he has.
First off, just hope everybody is doing well, staying healthy and safe. But I know a lot of you guys are working at home. I'm also working from home, so figured I would show you guys where I do all my sim racing, where I do all my interviews, all my TV stuff. I actually do it in a bedroom I have upstairs that I've kind of turned into a race room / trophy room. As you can see behind me, I got some of my trophies, my simulator. I'll show you my simulators right here. Full motion simulator. I run virtual reality, so I got my goggles right there. I've got some trophies in the background. One of my favorites is actually my first ever NASCAR trophy, which just so happened to be the Ford EcoBoost 200. I got my Eldora shovel trophy down there. I got my ARCA championship trophy, the Roval ring for the championship, and then over here I got some of my favorite helmets I got hanging up on the wall. Right there is one of my favorites. That was the helmet that won the Roval and Eldora. Kind of a cool rusted up Ford helmet. And then everybody loves Darlington weekend, so there's my throwback helmet, Parnelli Jones. So hope everybody, like I said, is doing well and staying healthy and safe, and can't wait to go back racing hopefully here soon.
So Sheldon's helmets, Chase's helmets, these race car drivers, they love their helmets, and we appreciate them taking us behind the scenes and sharing a look at their worlds. Hey, we need to step away. More Wing Nation in just a moment.
Hey, Ashley, what are you up to?
Oh, I just stopped by to grab some sage fruit apples. Now I just have to decide which ones.
You can never go wrong with a Honey Crisp. They're light, crisp, and full of perfectly balanced flavor.
Oh, hey.
You could always go with one of their classics, the Gala or Fuji. They're both sweet and juicy. Grown in the heart of Eastern Washington, Sage Fruit Company works hard on the farm and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears to consumers all year long.
Well, I couldn't decide which ones. Thanks for the help, guys.
I'll race you to checkout.
There are people who say things aren't made here anymore. Those people should make a trip to Michigan, or Kentucky, or Illinois, where you'll find our workers, and dealers, and engineers, and technicians building for America. We're proud to employ more hourly workers than any other automaker in this country, because we build for this country.
Welcome back. It is Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit here on MAV TV. Wow, what a show. I'm telling you, from Brad Doty to Shelton Hotsell to Chase Brisco, we've covered it all, Ashley. And we've also covered the month of May. Let's get the month behind us. March was no fun. The second half of March was brutal. April was like 6 years. May was like 4 years. Bring on June, because it's got to be better.
Well, I'm going with Brad Doty's theory and keeping our fingers crossed at this point. I'm ready to throw 2020 out the window. Not that I'm wishing any time away, but if we don't get back racing soon, I won't be sad to see this year gone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Such a fluid situation, such a moving situation. We recorded this show earlier, and stuff is happening so fast with races and racetracks and states and laws and pay-per-view and fans and no fans. So just follow along with your favorite series and your favorite track, and check in with them Fridays and Saturdays, because some of this stuff is happening on the day of the races. Ashley, I'll tell you, social media is allowing us at least to have that window where we can move a little quicker with some things.
Yes, and I can't keep up with it all anyhow, so make sure you check out wingnation.com too.
There we go. That's a good idea. I love the promo for sure. And you can follow along with all of our social media channels, with our Twitter, with our YouTube. It has all of those shows that we've had on there, and of course our Facebook page and group. We appreciate Brad Doty joining us here on the program, but more important than all of that, thank you for joining us here on Wing Nation.